Watch me turn this Dollar Tree plain Jane shelf and some of this here macrame cord into a super high-end bohemian inspired luxe wall decor. That's a mouthful. So if you want to see how all the magic happens and where it begins, all you have to do is stick around. To make my tassels, I'm simply going to be using some of this here macrame cord that I purchased off of Amazon, but Dollar Tree also has you covered with the macrame cord in smaller quantities, of course, in their crafted square section. So all I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking my macrame cord, and to have my tassels be consistent, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it around my board around 50 times. And this way they'll all be the same size and even. All right, so I got my 50th wrap. Here's where I started and here's where I'm ending around back. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut that off, put that down, and then I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna cut off another piece of string to tie it up. And I'm going to carefully, I hope you see what I'm doing here, but I'm going to be carefully removing it from the board while holding all my loops together. And then I'm just gonna come in with that string and I'm gonna start wrapping it around the collar. All right, so once I get that string wrapped all the way around my tassel completely, I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna give it some hot glue there to secure it, and I'm going to press it down into place. That's about it for your little tassel. Now all that's left to do is to cut off all these little loopies. You're just going to cut right through them, and after you get them all opened and not closed, then you're going to trim down your little tassel by giving it a quick little haircut. And that's all there is to making these tassels. So I'm going to be doing this 3 more times and I'll be back. And there you have it. This part is strictly preference. Of course, you make your tassels as long or as short as you feel you need it to be. And so in this case, I want to have my tassels semi-long, and I did go ahead and string up the top just to keep those loops separate. Depending on what kind of project you're going to be using your tassels for, this may or may not be necessary and is optional. So now, after doing this 4 times, here's what I'm left with after doing this 4 times. And as you see, my tassels are nice and even because I wrapped them the same amount of times, because I took the time to wrap my tassels 50 times around this board. They came out pretty much even. So now we can move on to the next step. Okay, so I think I might know now why these shelves ended up at the Dollar Tree. There's a little bit of a defect here. So I opened up the shrink wrap and all it came was with this little, like a silver metal key ring type of thing, and 1 string, and there's 4 holes. So nothing that I can't remedy. So I decided that instead of using this metal ring that it came with, I'm going to use some of these. Dollar Tree came out with these round wooden macrame hooks. So I'm going to use one of these, and to keep it cohesive with the tassels that I already made using this macrame cord, I'm going to use this for my length as a template to cut down a couple of pieces to size, because this cord is actually a little bit thicker than the one that I use for my tassels. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to double it up. All right, so here's a look at what I got going on. And so what I did was I measured out the cord with this, and I used 2 instead of 1. So I ended up with 4 pieces. so that I could double it to make it stronger, and then I slip knotted it through that little wooden macrame hook from the Dollar Tree. And so what you should be left with are 8 strands now. So this way I can put 2 in each hoe and it'll be a little bit stronger. But before I do so, what I decided is I'm going to be using some of these beads. These I purchased off of Amazon, but Dollar Tree also carries the natural wood beads as well. And they come in packs with a variety of sizes. But for this project, I'm going to be using the ones from Amazon. And so I think I'm going to be stringing 4 on each end. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take 2 of the strings that I want to put through here, and I'm going to be taking a piece of duct tape and wrapping it around to make sort of a makeshift needle, if you will. So here's all I do to create my little makeshift needle. I just take a little piece of duct tape and put the ends of that macrame cord inside, and I just roll it and twist it up to make a fine point. The object is to be able to thread the string through the holes in the board and also through those natural beads that we plan on using. I also wanted to mention that when you're cutting your strings, you want to be mindful and make sure that they're all the same exact length and that they're not uneven, otherwise your shelf is going to come out wonky. And as you see, all I'm doing is just using that tape as a needle and threading it through, twisting it until I see it come out the other end, and try to give it a good tug, and there you have it. And that's how I'm threading all my beads, and I'm going to be leaving the tape on so that I can get it through the board. Now that I have all my beads threaded, it's time to thread those strands through the holes in the board, and I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the beads and just pull it through the hole. And so I have that side, and I'm going to come in now with this side and do the same thing. It's going to be hard to show on camera because I'm going to have to try to hang it from something, I believe, so that I can get it to be level. But so far I got those 2 sides, and now I'm going to connect these 2 sides as well. So now for the most tedious and annoying part is to unravel all those little makeshift needles that we created with that painter's tape to thread the beads through. It's time to take them off. This is what your board should look like after you double knot it on all the ends. So now I'm going to just continue on trying to remove that tape so that we can move on to the next step. Okay, so since there's no particular way to attach these, I've been sitting here trying to figure out a way, and what I decided is that I'm going to pull on this knot a little bit. I took the remember I had taken the string and put it through the loops, so I opened it up and I secured it on the bottom. And so if you see what I'm doing here, I'm going to come around and wrap it around this knot and tie it into place to secure it, if you see what I'm doing here. And then I'm going to do that a couple of times to secure it, and then I'm going to add a little bit of hot glue to the bottom of that knot, and then a little bit of hot glue to the beads on the top to make sure that it doesn't move. So here's a look at what I got going on before I cut anything off and make it permanent. So basically this was the original knot coming from the string with the beads over here, and then I just looped the tassel around that knot and tied it off a couple of times. And so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come in with some of this here hot glue, and I'm gonna try to secure it to the board as best as I can. I'm gonna give this a pull through on the other side and just hold that knot there in place until it sets up and dries. All right, so now that that's dry, now I can come in and cut these little strands off here, and that's that. So then I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna do the same thing, and I'm gonna put a bead of glue on this side so that I can hold the beads in place so that they won't move. So I'm gonna do the same thing. Just add a dollop of glue there, and then I'm gonna push these beads down and hold them in place. This is so that when we hang our shelf up, it doesn't move and it stays secured. Okay, so this is basically what it's looking like so far and how I was able to attach that tassel. So now I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do it 3 more times. And that's really all there is to this DIY, and here I'm showing you how I styled it. I just hung it there. Now feel free to put your own spin on this DIY and make it your own by painting or staining that little shelf, but in the interest of keeping it, you know, bohemian inspired, I wanted to keep it in its natural state and as organic as possible. And here I just styled it with a little Dollar Tree vase and another little Dollar Tree candle and jar, and then I hung a little DIY feather that I created also using Dollar Tree macrame cord, and you can find that tutorial in my description bar below. So I hope you enjoyed this DIY, and I hope I inspired you to maybe take one of these shelves and give it a little luxe lift for your home decor. Bye now.